Hello, hello. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit differently. I've seen a bunch of tweets recently about how people want to get into content creation, but they don't know what gear they want to buy. So today I'm just going to make a one-off video explaining kind of the gear options you have and when you would want to buy them and for what situations. A couple notes before this video starts. This is not a comprehensive guide. I'm keeping this video as bare bones and easily digestible as possible. There are far more options of what I'm going to be covering today. So, I'm only going to recommend, 6 total mics, 2 for each different category. So, there are, of course, so many more options than what I'm going to talk about today. These are just the bare bones starting points for things that you might want to look into. I'm also going to cover the 3.5 main categories today. I'm going to cover cameras, mics, and lighting. And at the end, I'm going to do a quick software category, but that'll be, a couple things, couple sentences. To mainly keep this simple. And what you do need to know is that while gear is important to an extent, it's not as important as the actual content that you're going to make itself. So Chase put out a tweet today kind of saying that you don't need studio lighting, high quality cameras, or crystal clear mic stream commander. That's absolutely true. This is definitely an unnecessary barrier to entry. But there are some people out there who may already have their laptop or whatever they have set up and they may want to upgrade it. So this video is for them. People with $150 setups can be as successful as people with multi-$1,000 setups as long as the content is up to par and the content is quality. So while gear does enhance the content a lot of the time, having high quality gear is not a replacement for actual content. All the products that I recommend, anything I say about the products, I'm not affiliated with any of these companies, but all the links will be in the YouTube video description for every piece of gear I talk about. I'm not going to earn any commissions. These are just products that either I have personally used or that I have seen other people use and have seen other people have success with. So the first thing, we're going into cameras, and the very lowest thing that you can buy in terms of cameras is your cell phone. So there's a video here made by Tech Notice. This explains how to use your cell phone as a webcam in OBS, and you can do this, just chuck a stand at the back of your desk with a phone mount and use your camera as a webcam. Just chuck a cable into there, like a lightning cable or USB-C or whatever you use, and you should be all good for that. So if you don't want to invest any money into cameras, then use your phone. So say you want to put a little bit of money into a lower-end webcam, just because you want to use your phone to see chat or whatever reason. You don't want to keep it charged all the time. You want to use it for other stuff on stream, whatever it may be. The lowest end camera I would recommend is the Logitech C920. This got price gouged a bit because of COVID and people started doing zooms and whatnot, but this is a quality, more or less. This is the standard default for anyone who's interested in live streaming or just need a webcam for anything. The C920 is kind of the default starter webcam for a lot of people. It's pretty cheap, only $60, and you'll get an HD 30 frame image out of it, so it's pretty good for the price it is. There's a C920 and there's also a C920X. I don't know if there's a difference as far as those two. There are cheaper options on Amazon, but I can't testify to those either personally or through a trusted source. So if you want to read the reviews, take your own risks for it. You can check those out. The higher end webcams are a bit of a tricky subject. There are a couple that I would recommend. They are either the Elgato Facecam for $170 or the Razer Kio Pro here. There's a video right here by 9 to 5 Toys that goes into an in-depth comparison between the two. I'll link that in chat and then in the video description as well. Personally, I haven't used either of these, but these are the ones I do know about. But before we go on to the higher end actual camera setups, I'm going to take a second and talk about lighting. So if you're interested in going and doing some content creation, lighting is essential. If you have the option of getting a C920 $50 webcam or just your phone and a light, a key light, or one of the higher end webcams and no light, get the C920 with the light every single day of the week. The camera I'm using right here is the Sony a7 III with the 24mm G Master f1.4 lens. It is insanely overkill, and I would not recommend you buy this for a webcam on any level, any stretch of the imagination, but videography and media is my day job, so that's what I have. And I do have a key light. However, this is what this camera looks like with no lighting. You can see it's decent, but of course it's like kind of blown out in the top end. Like, it's not the worst in the world, obviously, just because it is more on the expensive side. But this is just what the camera looks like with overhead, like, room lights. And then, so if we compare it back with the key light, this is what it looks like with the key light. Admittedly, it did look decent. I thought it wouldn't look as good, but the f1.4 aperture lens is kind of saving it here. This key light that I am using is the Godox LED P260C bicolor LED. I've found it to be really good, personally, especially only for 90 bucks. No, you will have to get a desk mount for it, but it's pretty cheap, and I've been loving it so far. It comes with a little remote, so I can turn it on and off from here. And yeah, you can just see kind of the world of difference that a single $90 light makes. So I think a perfect starter setup, if you just chuck 150 bucks in there, like I said, would be a C920 plus, in my opinion, this with the light stand. Of course, there are a couple other options out there. There is the Elgato Key Light or the Elgato Key Light Air. Both of these are immensely popular in the live streaming and content creation world. And if you are looking for which one is right for you, mostly it depends on your personal space, like the room you have to work with, and how much light you actually need. But there is a there's a pretty good review by the people over at Newegg. I just linked it right there, down below. So back to camera upgrades. So if you want to eventually upgrade up to a mirrorless camera, kind of like this, obviously not as high-end as this one, a couple options. So instead of upgrading to the higher-end webcam here, you have a couple of different options. If you need two cameras, you may want to end up picking up one of these, but if not, if you're going to want to end up upgrading to any actual mirrorless camera with a removable lens, then you're going to need an Elgato Cam Link. So basically what this does is it just takes the HDMI out from your camera, turns it into a webcam-like input that your computer can read, and you can use the camera as a webcam. And if you want to start off, you can buy a used GoPro on eBay. Here's a GoPro Hero 7. There's a ton of them available, something like that. There's a ton of these available for just $160 on eBay. Now, about these cam links, there are a ton of like rip-off cheap ones, like 25 bucks. 25 buck cam links on Amazon, but I feel like this is the exact mantra of buy it nice or buy it twice. I've gone through like 2 of those in the past, and I just said fuck it and bought an actual cam link at the end of the day. And it also hits it also does 4K res if you need that, and 60 frames, so that's a plus side for this as well. But so yeah, instead of buying one of these higher end webcams that can't do anything besides sit on your monitor, you can instead buy a used GoPro plus a cam link and plug it in. I believe everything above the GoPro 4 has an HDMI out, so you're really just looking that the GoPro has a HDMI output that you can plug in. If you're ready to upgrade past the GoPro, you have a couple of options in terms of like an actual mirrorless camera to sit up there for the cameras. You can get a Sony a6000 is my recommendation for an actual mirrorless camera as a webcam. This one, like, the reason you'd want mirrorless cameras like these is they can remove their lenses, or they have removable lenses, so you can get different focal lengths, different background blurs. So like f1.4 is, without getting into like the science behind it, basically the lower the f-stop, the more light is let in and the blurrier the background is. So this is an f1.4. A lot of lenses, like kit lenses, are f3.5 or so, but this is a good one that you can get if you're interested in going to the higher end. You can also check out Adorama's used section. I wouldn't recommend buying an older camera like the A6000 new, just because it's so outdated. I'd recommend just shopping around used. Adorama doesn't have any in stock right now, but they normally do. The ideal lens would be something like the the Sigma 16mm f1.4. That gives it a 24mm look like what I have right here. So this is the focal length and field of view that you'd be looking at with a lens like this. But however, that setup is decently expensive, and there is a alternative setup for an actual camera that I'd recommend. And I personally think that it would be better, instead of buying this and this, to buy the Sony ZV-1. This is a great camera. It can honestly be used as an end-all be-all in terms of a content creation camera. You don't actually need the Elgato Cam Link in order to plug this right into your computer. Sony released a firmware update that lets you just plug it in right from your camera into your computer. And I believe like Jim from the Spike Videos, he uses this as like an overhead cam or the face cams for the people. So honestly, a decent path would be just starting off with just the C920 plus a key light, and then eventually, like, that gave you pretty decent camera quality already. But then if you want, you can upgrade to the ZV-1 and maybe have the C920 as like a playmat cam, and this could be your face cam. And like, this is also a great camera that you can actually take out of your office, your desk, whatever, and go vlog with it. Like if you end up going to a GP or whatever, or just whatever, you can just go vlog. I guess this video isn't necessarily just for magic people, but so that's about it for cameras. So now we're gonna go on to microphones. So there's a couple things that I'm just gonna say before microphones. I'm just gonna talk about a couple of differences between the types of mics that you'd want to look into. Let's first talk about USB versus XLR mics. So the way mics work is that they have a microphone capsule inside the microphone to pick up the noise of whatever it's recording, so say your voice, and it sends it out through an analog signal, and you actually need something to transfer the analog signal over to a digital signal so that your computer can actually read it and pick it up and understand what's coming through the microphone. And all mics have this in one way or another. For XLR mics, which is the kind of mic I'm using right here, it has this XLR output here. The analog to digital converter comes in the form of an audio interface, and this is just a little box that looks like this. This is the one I'd recommend. Just pick up the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. It's pretty cheap, 120 bucks. You plug the mic into here, and then in the back end there is a USB-C out to USB-A, so you can just plug it into your computer. And USB mics have the have the analog to digital converter inside the mic, but because of that, they're a lot smaller and normally not as powerful. So that's kind of, you go through an extra step to make your mic sound better. Second differentiating factor between mics is a condenser mic versus a dynamic mic. So the two mics have a different kind of capsule, so it's made differently and it's a different size. I'm going to show you the capsule for my personal condenser mic. See if I can pull focus. Yeah, so you can actually see the capsule right there. It's really big, and because of the big capsule, they can pick up a more crisp, more detailed, more real-to-life sound. And if I can get it to focus right there. Yeah, so the capsule actually takes up a lot of the space in this mesh here, in the casing. But the dynamics just straight up doesn't have that room on it for the capsule, so the capsule is a bit smaller. The one downside to having a big capsule in a condenser mic like this, or just condenser mics in general, is that because of how big they are, because of the detail of the sound they take in, you have to have a pretty well-treated room in order to use them to their full potential, because they would pick up stuff like computer fans running or like echoes that are bouncing off of your the corners in your room. So if you don't show your face on camera, if you just want to do narration voiceover work, then you can take a condenser mic like this just like into your closet, because the clothes there absorb the echoes, and it would sound better than a dynamic mic if you have a well-treated room. Condenser mics also have to be powered with something called phantom power, which isn't really a big deal. Most audio interfaces nowadays come with phantom power, but you just have to be aware of that when you're buying an audio interface. The Focusrite Scarlett comes with it. Most do nowadays, so it's just something you have to be aware of. Dynamic mics focus, like the one I have right here, their focus is on background noise rejection, and they also give you a more bassier and a broadcast type of sound. Streamers like using this because their rooms aren't perfectly treated. They have computers running. They have possibly light fans going. They have a bunch of other stuff going on. So this is the preferable mic type for a streamer. YouTuber, it may be a little bit different because you could have like an actual studio, but in general, the streamers and content creators like to use dynamic mics because of the flexibility it gives them in terms of where they can put their studio. So I'm going to show you a quick test to show you the difference between a condenser and a dynamic mic. I've been talking with a dynamic mic this whole time. This is a dynamic mic. I'll tell you the exact model later, but I'll switch it over to a condenser mic real quick so you can just hear the difference. All right, so you can kind of hear how, like, the difference in the mic, like how crisper the sound quality is, and you can kind of hear just like a more real to life sound coming out of this mic as opposed to the dynamic mic. So this is just like the two main different types of mics that you have to look out for and consider buying when you're gonna want to buy a mic. There is stuff like polar patterns. Most of the mics are cardioids. It doesn't really matter, but polar pattern is basically just in which, like, how the mic picks up. So like omnidirectional polar patterns pick up everything. Cardioid just picks up what's in front of the capsule, etc. So I'm gonna swap back over to this mic real quick. And also note, because the condenser mics use phantom power, the gain or the volume can be a little bit less. So if that's relevant to you, then that's relevant to you. So now that we've defined the differences between the types of mics, let's hop over to the recommendations. So for the USB mics, I would only pretty much look at one option in terms of USB mics, which is the Elgato Wave mics. There's the Elgato Wave 1 and the Wave 3. The Wave 1's $100. The Wave 3 is normally $150, but it's on sale for $120. So if you ever want to pick one up, you should probably pick one up right now while it's still on sale because this is a phenomenal price for such a good mic. What sets these mics apart is their Wavelink software. So the Wavelink software lets you apply effects like compression and EQ to your mic live on the fly, which normally you wouldn't be able to do with USB mics, but since they have the software to back it up, you can do that with these mics. So if you were to get a USB mic and you're not ready for an XLR or whatever, for whatever reason, maybe you don't have the money, look into getting the Wave 3. This is by far the best USB mic you can get on the market. You can also pick up the Wave XLR, which is a audio interface that you can get instead of the Scarlett Solo, and this is just a one input audio interface that gives you access to the Wavelink software. So if you want like a cheaper end XLR mic, you can plug it into this to get the Wavelink, to get access to the Wavelink software as well. So this is something I'm actually looking up looking at picking up soon into the future. So I'll let you know how it is if I do end up picking it up. So that's all for USB mic recommendations. Now let me hop onto the XLR. Let's go to the cheaper end. So XLR condensers, I would recommend either the Audio-Technica AT2020 or the Blue Ember. These are both pretty good condenser XLR microphones. There isn't too much of a difference between them because of just the way that Twitch and YouTube works. The compression makes these two mics sound pretty similar, but I would recommend looking into yourself which one of these you would rather have. If you want a dynamic XLR mic on the cheaper end, pretty much the only good one, I mean, there's a couple, but the only one I would recommend is the Rode Pod mic. This is the one I've had. I've used it for a bit. This is just a great $100 dynamic XLR mic. It is a little heavy. Just FYI, it's about 2 pounds, which is a lot, but it is really sturdy, sounds great, and it is built to last. So if you want a cheap XLR dynamic mic, go ahead and grab the Rode Pod mic. If you want to end up getting a more expensive mic than about $100 for an XLR, just keep in mind that all the mics at this price will sound more or less the same because of the compression that YouTube or Twitch does in order to like upload the video or live stream. So, but if you want the extra bump, like 10% boost in quality, or if you want the flexibility in editing, or if you're doing a higher end program, then there are a couple of higher-end mics that I would recommend. For XLR condensers, it's between the Rode NT1, which is the one I have here, and the Rode NT1A. There are a couple differences between the mics. Just because it's more expensive, it doesn't mean it's better. They have different frequency pickups, which is something you can get into. I'm not going to get into it here just because that's a more advanced topic, but If you're looking at getting a higher end condenser mic, I would highly recommend the Rode NT1. It's the one I have here. I used it in a video back a while ago. But if you want to see a comparison between the two, you can check out this video here by Audio Haze. It's a pretty good video comparing the Rode NT1 versus the Rode NT1A. If you want a higher end XLR dynamic mic, I would recommend either the Rode Procaster, which is this one I have here, or the Shure MV7X. I've been really happy with the Procaster. I'm loving the sound that comes out of it, but if you're on a tighter budget, the MV7X is a great pickup too. There is a Shure MV7 that has both USB and XLR outputs, so you can either use it as a USB mic or an XLR mic. However, just be aware that from the videos that I've seen and from the experiences that I've had with the mic, like one of my friends has it, the XLR output isn't the best on the mic. So this would ideally just be a USB mic, and as far as a $250 USB mic goes, I don't think it's that worth it. But the issue does go away, and the XLR output sounds great on the MV7X. But just know that if you want to get the MV7, I would highly just recommend going for the Rode Pod mic, plus the Elgato Wavelink XLR, but the Elgato Wave XLR instead. Just spend 10 more bucks, and the quality you'll get is significantly better, and the flexibility with the editing with that software too. Those are all the mics I'm gonna recommend. Now for the elephant in the room. I am not recommending the Shure SM7B at all. This is an industry standard mic. It has been for decades, but I can't justify recommending this mic when the price is almost double this, which is comparable if not better in quality than the SM7B, and especially because the SM7B is a notoriously quiet microphone. You'll need a cloud lifter to boost the output of the SM7B, so that'll be an extra $155 that you're gonna have to spend to get an actual working SM7B setup. So just for that reason, there are a ton of better mics out there for cheaper prices than the SM7B. So the last category I'm going to go into is a quick one. These are softwares that you're going to want to use as a creator. Basically, just to keep it simple, just use OBS for any streaming or recording needs you may have. All the other ones are just a hassle, and really just use OBS. For editing, you have a couple of options. DaVinci Resolve is the one that I've found to be the best. I've used it in the past. Currently, I just use Premiere. That's just because I have a license for it. I wouldn't recommend buying a license for Premiere if you don't already have one, just because it's so expensive. It's like $20 a month just for Premiere. So I would just recommend sticking with Resolve for a while. Admittedly, the learning curve is a bit higher. You can also get iMovie if you have a Mac, but I personally prefer Resolve, even though the learning curve is a bit higher. If you want, you can upgrade from iMovie to Final Cut Pro X. I've heard good things about it from other people. There's a bunch of people that I know that are great content creators that use Final Cut Pro X. Well, except for the professor. But I personally don't have any experience with it, so I can't attest to Final Cut X personally. So that's about it for this brief guide on content creation and getting started and buying gear if you're looking into buying some. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Check out my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/MtgGalaxy, where this was all recorded live, and you could ask me questions live about any gear that you have questions about. As always, TCG Player Affiliate, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, all in the description down below. And as always, I hope you have a great day.